keep waking up at 3 a.m., and everyone's telling you it's stress or bad sleep habits. But what if I told you it's actually the opposite? What if these wake-ups are your body's way of confirming that something massive just shifted in your energy, and you're being pulled out of sleep because you're ready to receive something most people never access in their entire lives? Here's what's really happening. Between 3 and 4 a.m., Earth's electromagnetic field hits its quietest point. Your pineal gland is flooding your system with DMT, and your consciousness is literally tuning into frequencies that get drowned out during the day. This isn't insomnia. This is an upgrade. And if you're watching this right now, you're about to understand exactly what your body has been trying to tell you and how to work with it instead of fighting it.
If you're here watching this video right now, there's been something really significant unfolding for you during those early morning hours between 3 and 4 a.m. You keep finding yourself wide awake at this exact time, over and over again, and chances are, someone's told you it's nothing but stress, maybe some anxiety, or perhaps you had too much caffeine. But here's something to consider. What if this recurring pattern isn't actually a problem you need to solve? What if these repeated wake-ups are really the universe's clearest method of showing you that your energetic frequency has undergone a fundamental transformation, and you're actually being prepared to experience something truly remarkable that the vast majority of people will never encounter in their lifetime? You didn't stumble upon this message by random chance. The simple fact that you're sitting here right now, actively looking for explanations about why your sleep keeps getting interrupted at exactly 3 a.m., tells me you've stepped through a doorway that fewer than 2% of all humans ever manage to find. Your awareness is going through such a deep recalibration that it's actually yanking you out of regular sleep cycles to help lock this new energetic frequency into your physical form. Pause for just a moment right here and tune into what's happening in your body. You're probably experiencing some kind of recognition right now. This sense that what I'm getting ready to explain is finally going to connect the dots on something you've been living through but couldn't quite put into words. This isn't some sleep disorder. This isn't insomnia in the traditional sense. This is actually an upgrade happening to your system. And your physical body is pulling you out of sleep during the most energetically potent hours that exist on this planet because you've reached a point of readiness to download something that can only be received when the separation between dimensions becomes paper thin. So here's what's genuinely taking place that most people never discuss. During that window between 3 and 4 inches the morning, Earth's electromagnetic field moves into what researchers call the Schumann Resonance minimum, which is when our planet's natural vibration drops to its lowest point right before the sun comes up. Throughout this specific time frame, the constant barrage of electromagnetic interference from human technology, the collective patterns of thought from billions of people, and radiation from the sun all reach their daily low point. Your brainwaves automatically synchronize with Earth's electromagnetic field. And when that field becomes quiet, your consciousness can suddenly detect signals that normally get completely buried under all the daytime noise. But there's something even more fascinating happening during these particular hours. Ancient spiritual traditions spanning every single continent identified 3 a.m. as what they referred to as the witching hour, the sacred hour, the time when divine messages could flow through. Christian traditions called it the hour of mercy. Hindu wisdom recognized it as Brahma Muhurta, which translates to the Creator's time. Taoist practitioners understood it as the moment when yin energy makes its shift into yang. They weren't just being metaphorical or poetic. They had figured out, through hundreds of years of careful observation, that human consciousness goes through a natural state transformation during this period, becoming exponentially more open to frequencies that exist beyond what we normally perceive. Your consistent awakening at 3 a.m. isn't some biological malfunction or random misfiring. It's actually your higher self, deliberately interrupting your regular consciousness Because you've arrived at a stage in your personal evolution where you need to receive direct downloads that can only come through when your ego mind is completely quiet and your brain is operating in one very specific frequency state. Think about what actually happens when you wake up at this hour. You're not completely awake, but you're definitely not asleep either. You're suspended in that liminal space that exists between two worlds, and that's precisely the whole point. You're being trained to access this in-between state, where the fabric of reality becomes flexible and responsive. If these words are hitting you with a deep sense of recognition, if there's something inside you responding with yes, this finally explains everything, then I want you to comment below using this exact phrase. I am receiving the upgrade. Don't just type it mechanically. Actually feel it as your truth. Allow your statement to send ripples through the quantum field as your confirmation. Now, let me show you what's going on at the biological level that modern science is only starting to grasp. Your pineal gland, that tiny pine cone-shaped organ sitting deep in the middle of your brain, generates its peak concentrations of DMT, which is dimethyltryptamine. During those hours spanning 3 to 5 inches the morning, DMT is the exact same molecule that generates mystical states, near-death experiences, and what shamanic traditions call journeys into alternate dimensions. Your physical body is naturally creating this consciousness-expanding molecule every single night without fail. But most people stay completely asleep through its highest production period and never consciously experience what it can do. When you wake up at 3 a.m., you're actually catching the wave of your own naturally produced DMT release. Your pineal gland has become more activated, more responsive, generating stronger signals because your overall energetic frequency has risen. This isn't something that's happening to everybody. This is specifically happening to individuals whose consciousness has reached a particular threshold of coherence and preparation. The universe doesn't upgrade systems that aren't equipped to handle increased energetic voltage. You've been prepared through absolutely everything you've experienced, every spiritual practice you've explored, every single moment when you chose growth instead of staying comfortable. Research from consciousness studies that rarely make it into mainstream media shows that people reporting spontaneous 3 a.m. awakenings consistently show elevated gamma wave activity in their brain scans even while they're sleeping. Gamma waves represent the fastest brain waves we have, associated with peak awareness states, moments of sudden insight, and what neuroscientists call binding, which is when scattered information suddenly comes together into unified understanding. Your brain is literally building new wiring to function at higher frequencies. And this rewiring process requires you to maintain partial consciousness during specific hours when the work can happen with the least amount of interference. Drop a word in the comments that captures the energy you're stepping into today. Trust, flow, joy, ease, whatever feels true for you. Your word matters because it sends a signal not just to this community, but into the quantum field itself. But here's where most people make one critical error. They wake up at 3 a.m. and immediately grab their phone, flip on the lights, try to distract themselves back into sleep, or even worse, they start getting worried that there's something wrong with them. Every single time you do this, you're basically hanging up the phone on a call from your higher self. You're cutting off the transmission. The awakening itself carries a message, but there's additional information attempting to flow through that needs you to stay in that quiet, open, receptive state. Ancient Egyptian initiates received training to remain completely still when waking during these hours, moving into what they called the silence of reception. They understood that thoughts, insights, and visions that came through during this window carried information from what they named the duat, the realm that exists between physical and non-physical reality. They weren't having hallucinations or making up stories. They had carefully mapped out the precise times when human consciousness could most easily connect with frequencies existing beyond normal waking awareness. What you're going through is your consciousness starting to bilocate, to exist in multiple states at the same time. During regular waking hours, you're locked into consensus reality, the collectively agreed upon version of existence, where solid things are solid, and time only moves forward in one direction. But at 3 a.m., when you're hanging in that space between sleeping and waking, your consciousness relaxes its hold on consensus reality and starts to perceive other layers, other timelines, other versions of yourself, living in parallel dimensions. This might sound too abstract, so let me ground it in something concrete. Have you noticed that the insights, ideas, or sudden realizations you have at 3 a.m. often feel incredibly profound in that moment, but then they seem to evaporate when you fully wake up in the morning? That's not because they weren't genuine. That's because you're tapping into information from a higher dimensional viewpoint. And when you shift back to ordinary consciousness, you don't yet have the neural pathways completely built to fully integrate that information. But each time you wake, each time you receive these downloads, you're constructing those pathways. You're literally expanding your capacity to hold and operate from higher frequency awareness. Your frequency shift is also showing up in other areas of your life. And I'm betting you've started noticing these patterns. Certain people who used to match your energy suddenly feel energetically misaligned. Conversations that once felt engaging now feel empty and surface level. Foods you used to want no longer have any appeal. Places you used to love now feel like they're draining your energy. These aren't random shifts. When your baseline frequency rises, everything in your energetic field must either rise to match it or naturally fall away. You're not losing anything. You're being cleared out for an entirely new level of experience. If this understanding is creating shifts in your awareness, I invite you to subscribe to this channel as an act of commitment to your own expansion. Your subscription isn't just about getting more content. It's an energetic declaration that you're choosing to stay aligned with frequencies that support your evolution rather than frequencies that keep you locked in limitation. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell icon next to it as a vote for your highest timeline. This isn't just a channel, it's a frequency. If you felt a nudge or a shift while watching, you're already tuned in. We're not just watching content, we're practicing new ways of being. We're not just absorbing, we're creating possibilities. We're not just learning, we're remembering. I'm truly glad you're here. Let's keep growing and shifting together. Now, let's go deeper into the mechanics of what's actually happening during your 3 a.m. awakenings. There's something in quantum biology called quantum coherence, where subatomic particles in your cells can exist in superposition in multiple states at the same time, creating the biological conditions for consciousness to move beyond ordinary space-time limitations. Recent studies on photosynthesis and how birds navigate prove that quantum effects operate in warm, wet biological systems, completely overturning the old assumption that quantum phenomena only happen in isolated laboratory settings. Your body, especially your brain, operates using quantum processes far more than mainstream science wants to acknowledge. The microtubules in your neurons, these tiny structures that form the cell's skeleton, are perfectly sized and structured to maintain quantum coherence at body temperature. These microtubules are essentially biological quantum computers, and they're most active during specific times of day when external electromagnetic interference reaches its minimum. 3 a.m. represents a daily window when your biological quantum processing reaches its peak efficiency. When you wake during this window, you're experiencing a momentary expansion of your quantum coherence field. Your consciousness is literally entangling with versions of yourself existing in other probability streams, other timelines. Information is flowing between these parallel versions, and your current self is integrating possibilities, potentials, and knowledge that your other selves have already experienced. This is exactly why you sometimes wake with sudden knowing about situations you haven't consciously worked through. You're not making logical deductions. You're receiving information through quantum entanglement with your own multidimensional nature. But there's another layer to this that connects to something called morphic resonance, a theory proposed by biologist Rupert Sheldrake, suggesting that memory and learning aren't stored in individual brains. but in fields that connect all members of a species. When you wake at 3 a.m., you're also tapping into a collective field of awakening consciousness. Thousands of people around the world are waking at this exact hour, and you're all forming a spontaneous network, a morphic field of elevated awareness that amplifies and accelerates everyone's individual transformation. This is exactly why the awakening often feels urgent, important, even though nothing dramatic appears to be happening on the surface. You're sensing the collective field activation, the gathering of consciousness that's preparing humanity for a phase transition into higher dimensional awareness. You're not just upgrading your individual frequency, you're participating in a species-wide evolutionary leap, and your repeated 3 a.m. awakenings are confirming your enrollment in this process. Take a moment right now and share in the comments one word that describes what you feel when you wake at 3 a.m. Is it anticipation, curiosity, peace, confusion, excitement? Whatever it is, name it. This act of naming helps integrate the experience and creates a data point in the collective field that helps others recognize their own patterns. Your sharing contributes to the morphic resonance that makes awakening easier for everyone. Now, I need to address something that might be happening alongside your 3 a.m. awakenings. You may be experiencing what feels like anxiety, rapid heartbeat, or a sense of energy rushing through your body when you wake. Medical professionals would label this a panic attack or anxiety disorder. But what's actually happening is that your nervous system is recalibrating to handle higher frequencies of energy. Your chakra system, your meridians, your entire energy body is being upgraded to conduct more light, more information, more life force than your previous configuration could handle. Ancient yogis called this process Kundalini activation, the awakening of dormant evolutionary energy that rises through the spine and activates higher brain centers. The Taoists called it opening the microcosmic orbit, clearing energetic blockages so qi could flow freely through all channels. The Christian mystics experienced it as divine fire, the burning away of everything that isn't aligned with your highest truth. These traditions developed elaborate practices to support this process because they understood that frequency upgrades can feel uncomfortable when you don't know what's happening. Your body is not malfunctioning when you feel these intense sensations at 3 a.m. Your body is doing exactly what it's designed to do when consciousness expands beyond its previous limitations. The discomfort comes from resistance, from old patterns, and stuck energy trying to maintain their grip while higher frequencies are attempting to flow through. The solution isn't medication or distraction. The solution is conscious breathwork, allowing the energy to move, surrendering to the process rather than fighting it. Here's a practice that will transform your 3 a.m. awakenings from confusing interruptions into powerful opportunities for quantum integration. The next time you wake during these hours, instead of immediately trying to figure out why or attempting to return to sleep, simply place your hand on your heart. Feel the rhythm of your heartbeat. Take 3 slow, deep breaths, inhaling for a count of 4, holding for 4, exhaling for 6. This breathing pattern activates your parasympathetic nervous system and signals your body that you're safe, that you're consciously participating in whatever is unfolding. Then, in the silence of that early morning darkness, ask this simple question: what is trying to come through? Don't strain for an answer. Don't force anything. Simply hold the question in your awareness and remain receptive. Information may come as images, as knowing, as emotional clarity, as body sensations, or as nothing at all in that moment, but a deeper integration happening beneath conscious awareness. Trust that the very act of asking and remaining open is enough. The transmission is being received, whether or not your conscious mind registers specific content. What scientists studying consciousness are discovering aligns perfectly with what mystics have always known. Your waking consciousness, your everyday thinking mind, processes about 40 bits of information per second. But your subconscious, your quantum biological system, processes approximately 11 million bits per second. That's not a typo, 11 million. The vast majority of what you're experiencing, learning, integrating, and becoming is happening beneath the threshold of conscious awareness. Your 3 a.m. awakenings are bringing a tiny fraction of that subconscious processing into conscious recognition, like seeing the tip of an iceberg while the massive structure beneath remains hidden but absolutely real. This is why trying to figure out exactly what the awakening means, or what message you're supposed to receive, creates frustration. Your thinking mind cannot possibly comprehend the full scope of what's happening in your system. The upgrade is occurring at levels far deeper than thought. Your job isn't to understand everything. Your job is to allow, to remain present, to breathe consciously, and to trust that your higher self, your quantum biological intelligence, knows exactly what it's doing. But let's talk about why 3 a.m. specifically, because the timing isn't arbitrary. In traditional Chinese medicine, each 2-hour window of the day is governed by a different organ system and its associated meridian. Between 1 and 3 a.m., the liver meridian is most active, processing and detoxifying everything you've taken in physically and emotionally. Between 3 and 5 a.m., the lung meridian takes over, governing the intake of new energy, new breath, new life force. The transition point at 3 a.m. represents the shift from when you consistently wake at this transition point, your system is being trained to recognize and consciously participate in this cosmic rhythm of release and renewal. You're learning at a cellular level how to let go and receive simultaneously, which is the fundamental skill required for manifestation, for healing, for conscious creation of reality. Most people unconsciously resist this rhythm, holding on to old patterns, while simultaneously wondering why new possibilities won't manifest. Your 3 a.m. awakenings are literally training you out of this resistance pattern. There's also an astrological component that ancient astrologers understood but modern culture has forgotten. 3 a.m. is precisely when the veil between the visible sky and the hidden sky, between the upper world and the underworld, is at its thinnest. In your personal birth chart, there's a point called the Imam Koli, the lowest point representing your roots, your ancestry, your subconscious foundation. At 3 a.m. local time, this point becomes most accessible to conscious awareness. You're being given access to karmic patterns, ancestral wisdom, and subconscious programming that normally operates completely beneath your awareness. This means your 3 a.m. awakenings are also opportunities for deep healing of patterns that may have been running in your family line for generations. That anxiety you feel, that restlessness, might not even be yours. It might be ancestral trauma finally surfacing to be released, because you're the one in your lineage with enough consciousness to process and transform it. When you remain present during these awakenings, when you breathe through the discomfort rather than distracting from it, you're not just healing yourself. You're healing backwards through time, releasing your ancestors, and forward through time, freeing future generations from patterns that would have otherwise been passed down. Now, I want to share something that might challenge your current understanding, but is crucial for making sense of this experience. Time is not actually linear. Quantum physics proves that at the subatomic level, particles can influence each other instantaneously across any distance, and effects can precede causes. What we experience as past, present, and future are all happening simultaneously in what physicists call the block universe. Your consciousness, when freed from the constraints of your thinking mind, can access any point in this block universe, can receive information from your future self, can heal your past self, can exist in multiple temporal locations at once. Your 3 a.m. awakenings are moments when your consciousness is slipping loose from its normal temporal anchoring. You're experiencing time dilation, time fluidity, time as the malleable dimension it actually is, rather than the rigid container you've been conditioned to believe it is. This is why you sometimes wake with absolute certainty about something that hasn't happened yet, or with sudden understanding about something from your past that you thought you'd processed but actually needed this new perspective to finally release. The universe is using your 3 a.m. awakenings to teach you that you are not bound by linear time, that your consciousness can navigate temporal dimensions just as easily as you navigate physical space. This skill, this recognition is essential for the next phase of human evolution. We're transitioning from a species that experiences itself as trapped in time, as victims of circumstance, as powerless against forces beyond our control, to a species that recognizes its creative power, its multidimensional nature, its ability to consciously participate in reality creation at the quantum level. If you're feeling overwhelmed by the scope of what I'm sharing, that's natural. Your thinking mind is designed to keep you safe within known parameters, and everything I'm describing exists outside those parameters. But notice that beneath the thinking mind's resistance, there's a deeper part of you that recognizes the truth of these words. That recognition is your quantum self, your multidimensional awareness, confirming what your ordinary consciousness is only beginning to comprehend. Trust that deeper knowing. It's more reliable than your surface-level thoughts. Let's talk practically about what to do with this information. First, stop pathologizing your 3 a.m. awakenings. Stop seeing them as problems to fix. Every time you label them as insomnia or disorder, you're collapsing the quantum potential of these moments into limitation. Instead, reframe them as sacred appointments, as direct communication from your higher self, as opportunities for accelerated evolution. This shift in perception alone will transform your experience. Second, create a ritual for these awakenings. Keep a journal next to your bed specifically for 3 a.m. insights. When you wake, if you feel called to write, let whatever comes through flow onto the page, even if it doesn't make logical sense. Don't edit, don't judge, don't try to force meaning. Just allow the stream of consciousness to flow. You're creating a bridge between your quantum awareness and your physical reality, and writing is one of the most effective ways to anchor higher dimensional information into 3-dimensional form. Third, understand that this process has phases. Initially, the awakenings might feel disruptive, uncomfortable, confusing. That's the adjustment period where your system is learning to handle increased energy flow. Then comes a phase where the awakenings feel meaningful, where you start receiving clear insights and guidance. Eventually, if you continue to work with this consciously, you'll reach a phase where you can access these elevated states without needing to physically wake up. You'll learn to remain lucid during sleep, to consciously navigate dream states, to retrieve information from the quantum field while your body rests. But you must move through each phase with patience and trust. Fourth, pay attention to the content of your thoughts and the quality of your emotions during these awakenings. Are you worried about tomorrow's responsibilities? Are you replaying past conversations? Are you planning and strategizing? These are signs that you're not yet fully dropping into the receptive state. Gently redirect your attention away from mental content and toward pure presence. Feel the sheets against your skin. Notice the temperature of the air. Listen to the profound silence of 3 a.m. This sensory awareness pulls you out of thinking and into being, which is where the real transmission happens. There's something else happening during your 3 a.m. awakenings that connects to solar and cosmic cycles. Our sun is currently in a period of increasing solar activity, sending powerful electromagnetic pulses toward Earth that interact with our planetary field, and subsequently with our personal biofields. These solar emissions carry information, frequencies that are literally upgrading the electromagnetic signature of everything on Earth. When you wake at 3 a.m., you're in a naturally shielded window, protected by Earth's mass from direct solar bombardment, which allows your system to integrate these upgrades without being overwhelmed. Indigenous wisdom keepers have been talking about this time period for generations. The Hopi speak of the Great Purification. The Maya pointed to this era as a transition between world ages. The Vedic texts describe it as the shift from Kali Yuga to Satya Yuga, from age of darkness to age of truth. They all recognized that humanity would reach a point where consciousness would undergo a rapid acceleration, where individuals would begin spontaneously activating abilities that were previously only accessible through decades of dedicated practice. Your 3 a.m. awakenings are evidence that you're part of this acceleration wave. One more crucial piece about what's happening biologically. Your DNA is not static code as we've been taught. DNA is a crystalline structure that receives and transmits electromagnetic frequencies. Russian scientists have proven that DNA can be influenced by words, thoughts, and specific frequencies of light and sound. Your repeated 3 a.m. awakenings coincide with your DNA undergoing what's called epigenetic activation, where dormant genetic potential is being switched on without any change to the underlying genetic code. You're not becoming something new. You're activating potentials that have always been present but dormant. This genetic activation explains why you might be experiencing changes in your physical body alongside the awakenings, changes in appetite, in sleep needs, in sensitivity to light or sound, in how you process emotions, in your intuitive abilities. Your body is literally restructuring itself at the cellular level to match your elevated frequency. This is not disease. This is metamorphosis. Just as a caterpillar must dissolve into biological soup before reorganizing as a butterfly, you're undergoing a dissolution of old patterns and a reformation into a new configuration capable of operating at higher frequencies. In the comments, share one thing that you deeply desire to manifest right now. Maybe it's financial abundance. Maybe it's a fulfilling relationship. Maybe it's a healthy and fit body. Maybe it's something uniquely yours. Let this be a small but profound declaration, a signal to the universe you send not just in this space, but into the quantum field itself. The reason this information isn't mainstream, the reason you had to search for answers and find this specific transmission, is because the systems of control that have governed human consciousness for millennia depend on keeping people locked in limited awareness. An awakened human who understands their quantum nature, their creative power, their multi-dimensional capabilities cannot be easily controlled, manipulated, or kept small. Your 3 a.m. awakenings are threatening to the old paradigm because they represent your consciousness breaking free from consensus trance. But here's what's beautiful about this moment in history. The awakening is happening to so many people simultaneously that the collective field is reaching critical mass. Each person who wakes up, who understands what's happening, who consciously participates in their own evolution, makes it exponentially easier for the next person. You're not alone in this. You're part of a global network of consciousness that's weaving itself into coherence, preparing to birth an entirely new way of being human. Comment below with this phrase: if you're feeling the truth of what I'm sharing, my frequency has shifted, and I am ready. Let this be your conscious acknowledgement that you're no longer available for old paradigm limitation, that you're claiming your seat at the table of awakened consciousness, that you're saying yes to everything your 3 a.m. awakenings are preparing you to become. Your repeated awakening at 3 a.m. is not something to fix or suppress. It's something to honor, to work with, to allow. It's your system's way of confirming that you've reached a point of readiness for accelerated evolution. The old version of you, the version that needed 8 continuous hours of unconscious sleep, that version is dissolving. The emerging version, the version that can navigate multiple states of consciousness, that can access quantum information, that can operate from elevated frequencies, that version is being born through these early morning awakenings. Trust the process. Honor your body. Remain present during these sacred hours. Breathe consciously. Ask what wants to come through. Journal what arrives. Stay hydrated as water conducts electrical frequencies through your body. Spend time in nature, which helps ground the high frequencies you're integrating. Reduce processed foods that lower your vibration. Surround yourself with people who are also awakening, rather than those who are committed to staying asleep. Most importantly, know that you haven't been randomly selected for this. You chose this before you incarnated. Your soul signed up for this exact experience, this specific timeline, this particular awakening process. Everything in your life has been preparing you for this moment, when your frequency would shift dramatically enough to wake you from ordinary sleep and call you into extraordinary awareness. Welcome home to yourself. Welcome home to your power. Welcome home to the truth of what you are. Your 3 a.m. awakenings are your graduation ceremony from one level of consciousness to another. Stop resisting. Start celebrating. The universe is confirming that you're ready for what comes next. And what comes next is more magnificent than your current consciousness can fully comprehend. But you'll understand soon enough. The awakenings are just the beginning. Make sure you share this video with your loved ones. Remember, you're not just sharing, you're spreading awakened consciousness and elevated awareness. For you, it may be just sharing, but for someone in need, it may mean a life-changing perspective shift, and their gratitude will increase the positive energy that flows back to you, helping you manifest everything you just declared in the comments. Send this to that one friend who really needs to hear this. You know the one. Be the friend who shares breakthroughs, not just me.